opportunities, and empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, President Larry Ivory.
My name is Larry Ivory, and I am the President and CEO of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce and Chairman of the Board of the National Black Chamber of Commerce. It is another Saturday morning for us to get involved and engage in some very important topics that always focus on black business and black business empowerment. So today we're going to have an exciting show with a couple of incredible guests that I think you're going to enjoy as they lead great organizations that do phenomenal things. You know, we have LaDonna Raeh, not LaDonna Raeh anymore, but Dr. LaDonna Raeh. She got her honorary doctor's degree, and she's going to be coming on with us. Before we get to LaDonna Raeh, we have on our show what's called the History Fact. And we have Lorenzo Hume, who's a human trafficker consultant, but also an actor and entertainer. So at this time, Lorenzo Hughes, give us what we have as a little known history fact.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Wake Up Show Chicago, and happy Juneteenth and happy Father's Day weekend to all those fathers out there. I'm here in Kansas City celebrating my mother's birthday, which was yesterday, my daughter's birthday that's on the 9th. So I got a lot of celebrations going on here. But one thing I do want to celebrate with this little known Black history fact is that I do want to celebrate the remembrance of all the accomplishments as a culture that we were able to accomplish. Because one of the things I do want to remember, I want us to remember Oscarville, Georgia, of 1912, Greenville, Oklahoma, 1921, Eatonville, Florida, the Wilmington insurrection on November 10th, 1898, Colfax massacre on April 13th of 1873, the 1908 Springfield race riot, the Sharpeville massacre, the 1898 Wilmington, North Carolina violent coup massacre, and the 1912 Forsyth County, Georgia massacre. And that's just to name the ones that we know of. Now, as I go into this little known history fact, the one thing I want to say is that one of the things that we forget, we have forgotten that we have survived Jim Crow, we have survived systematic strategism, and we are still here. God has blessed us with a resilience, and we are still battling like systematic and political oppression. And Larry and LaDonna, I just have to ask the question: how is it that we have been able to survive water hoses, police dogs sicked on us, domestic terrorism? But we see that historically, for certain, it has been, the person that is slowing us down happens to be us. And that's one of the conversations that it seems like we don't want to have. The system, I mentioned above, is real, and oppression is still real, but we have started to finish the job for those who we call, our oppressor. We're the only culture that, to a degree, will watch somebody build a ladder and get mad that they didn't build an elevator for everybody. We watch day in and day out on social media that we'll celebrate and shout out, everyone else, other businesses other than us. But then when we see one of us striving for Black excellence, somehow, we're getting mad. And I'm starting to realize, because I'm sitting outside of a Black business here in Kansas City, she is a Black hair care owner, and we were having a conversation about the struggles of Black hair care and how the Koreans own that market, and they treat Black business owners with a mafia type attitude. And they've mentioned to her that Blacks will not succeed. One of her mentors, who was Korean, told her that she would not succeed in this business because they control the industry. So one of the questions I want to ask is, how is it that we have adopted the behavior of carrying on the oppression of the oppressing our own business that we're used to our oppressors oppressing us with? So one of the things I want us to remember and reflect on is those list of cities that were black businesses or black business meccas in Wall Streets, and to remember those businesses and start changing our mindset when it comes to doing business with one another, because there is a systematic stratagem that's locking us out of business. And that's our little known Black history fact.
That sounds like current events. It sounds like something we're still dealing with, Lorenzo.
And I say that because, even when we have these conversations, we're having the same conversations from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lorenzo. We really appreciate you. I know you're out in Kansas City. I'm going to let you get back to it, man. But thank you so much, because, see, now we got a question for the audience and for some people to think about. Larry, thank you so much for the introduction. I want to really take a moment and share with you, because I'm glad that you're in studio today. I would have dressed up had I known. But, there's an attack. We always hear this. There's an attack on black business. There's an attack on black people. There's an attack on people having businesses. And what Lorenzo just shared with us is that there's a mafia style attack on even being in business. You've seen these memes go around over and over again where they're talking about, hey, boycott our Chinese businesses. But then you look around in your neighborhood and it's all these Chinese businesses. If you were to boycott them, where would you go? You see? And then there are black businesses that somewhat do what they do, but they can't do it in bulk like they do, because they can't do the collective buying that they do.
Sure. Or have the capital access that some people have. And I think that's why it's so important of what we do with the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. We're really targeting, black businesses in a way that really kind of uplifts black business owners and really kind of gives them a platform so they can have more access to capital, more access to contracts. And today I'm excited because, LaDonna, we have some experts in the industry of construction, and construction is one of the leading indicators of an economy. So if housing and construction is going, the economy is doing well. And that's why construction is such a critical part, whether it be vertical construction that deals with the Capital Development Board, or you have horizontal construction that deals with the Department of Transportation. There's billions of dollars being spent every year. And I always say to people, when you take a look at highway infrastructure, is funded by the Transportation Fund. And the fact of the matter is, on the Transportation Fund, that's funded by the motor fuel tax, which means that if you put gas in your car, you're funding highway infrastructure. So it means that we all are investing in that by buying gas. The question is, are we participating beyond the fact that we can drive on the highways to building of the highways, to make sure that engineers are participating in professional services, and also to make sure that contractors are participating, whether it be the tollway, whether it be IDOT, whether it be any city streets or roads. We have a right to participate where our dollars help create the opportunity. And I'm excited that we have a couple incredible guests, and I want to see if those guests are on at this point in time. But until they come on, this is just so important, to understand the industry. And what we found out to be the case has been and continues to be the case is that when we take a look at the numbers, and I mean the numbers, if you ever walk into a meeting with anyone in government or corporations and they say that we have done 20%, 25, 15%, 30%, 50%, and they never break down the breakout in terms of African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, white women. When they don't break it out, that is always the indication, if they're talking to black people, that we're not doing well. Because if we're doing well, the first thing they'll talk about is how well blacks are doing as a rule of thumb. But if you got to drag that out of them, that is already an indication, because you can feel the air go out of the room when we're in meetings with people and we see that, hey, here's what's the, you did 20 something percent. Give us a breakdown of African Americans, not just the total percentage of everybody in the bucket, but how well have we done? Because data tells us something. And if the data tells us that we're the lowest on the totem pole, then we have to ask ourselves, what do we need to do? We don't need to get angry about it, and we don't need to get frustrated, but we need to figure out what's going on and create a game plan and a strategy to improve our success rate. And that's why organizations have to come together and work together on a common goal to make things better for the industry. And I'm proud to say that we have a couple outstanding leaders, one with BECO, and the person is Irma Holloway, who's one of the leaders of an incredible organization, BECO, who really focuses on construction, I think, vertical and horizontal. So at this time, we have Irma Holloway. Irma, good morning. Glad to have you on the show.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Larry Ivory and Dr. LaDonna Raeh. And congratulations on your new title. And I know that the efforts, are definitely worth the title. So thank you guys for allowing me an opportunity to come on this morning.
Of course, and thank you, Ms. Irma, and welcome. Of course, this is an opportunity for us to let everybody know that they may have heard of BECO, and that's BECO, but they may not know exactly what it stands for or what the organization does. Can you tell us what is BECO?
Okay, sure. Actually, the acronym is BCOE, and it stands for Black Contractors, Owners, and Executives. We are an organization that started back in 2016 under the direction of the founder, Sean Harris. And we're at this point 10 years strong under the leadership of Mr. Jimmy Akatande of Ujamaa Construction, who leads our efforts in our 270 firms and counting as we build capacity and impact and advocacy work across the state of Illinois.
Irma, you mentioned Jimmy, and Jimmy is a iconic figure
Yes, he is.
in general contracting across the state. Give us some sense of, because we have the other gentleman we're going to introduce in just a moment, but
Sure.
Jimmy is one of the leading general contractors, African Americans, in the state of Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes. Jimmy is almost 30 years into the industry, into the built environment, I should say. And, that does not come without, some, hard knocks, some challenges along the way. But endurance, has really stood the test of time. And as a result of it, Ujamaa has now become one of the largest African American construction companies in our region, and I believe they're in 5 different states at this point. But nevertheless, what an amazing organization led by an amazing leader who has really helped to open doors for minorities across the nation. And we're super excited to, work and lead up under his leadership. As he has built his company, he continues to help us build Black contractors, owners, and executives. I believe his company alone has awarded in 5 years or so over $200 million worth of contracts to minority firms. And I could say with all, with authority, that he is a person that shows up, that he believes in supporting contractors and making sure that we win, scale, and compete, and that not only is he handing out contracts, but he's mentoring those within our organization, and those that have really shown themselves to be, hey, I'm in it for the long term. What do I do? And I've seen them pick up phone call after phone call, meet with member after member to make sure that they're winning, that they're scaling, that they're growing, and that, we're just building capacity collectively, across the state of Illinois.
Irma, thank you. Hey, let's get to our next guest. Kareem, there's an organization. Is he on?
He's getting on right
He's
now.
getting on. Okay.
I had some more questions for Miss Irma because
Correct.
and thank you for correcting me on the acronym. What inspired its creation? What was the reason behind it? If I missed it,
Black contractors, owners, and executives.
yes.
Okay, so the inspiration, based on what the founder, Mr. Sean Harris, the owner of Livewire and Black Rock Construction, has shared with us along the way, is that he was an electrical contractor and still is at this point at that time, and they found that electrical contractors did not have a voice, they did not have a seat at the table. And as a result of it, he, along with five other electrical contractors, came together to actually buy into the dream that he had to say, hey, we need to have a voice, and we need to have a voice now, because we have people that have been in the business for a long time, that don't look like you, don't look like me, don't look like us, that are getting contracts, and we are being left behind. We're taking the crumbs, and we're supposed to be okay with the crumbs. And so as a result of it, 2016, Black Contractors Owners and Executive was birthed. I believe less than a year later, people realized that the organization was moving forward, and they said, hey, we need a voice too. We need an advocate too. And if you know anything about Sean Harris, he is a disruptor, and he has no problem getting into a room and letting people know what that looks like for us and how we feel. And that's what we needed at that point in time. And as a result, the organization began to grow. And here we are 10 years later, and we're continuing to build.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Let me
Larry.
let's get, because I want to make sure we get, an iconic organization. Another one, Black Contractors United, has been on the battlefield for many of years in the city of Chicago, and the leader of that organization is Kareem Broughton. And did I get that right, Kareem?
Kareem.
Kareem. Mm-hmm. So we have him on the call. Kareem, welcome to the Wake Up Show Chicago. Tell us a little bit about you and your organization, and give us a little bit of perspective on who you guys are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
So, thank you guys for having me this morning. Greatly appreciate it. My name is Kareem Broughton. I am the president of Black Contractors United. Black Contractors United is one of the original assist agencies. We were around since 1977. Some of our advisory board members that were the original board members is Larry Huggins. One of our other presidents was, Ernest Brown. And we were back in the late 70s, early 80s, when there was just not a avenue for Black contractors to be heard or to be in a position of being able to procure contracts that was in a strong public or private sector. They originated this so we can actually have a voice and actually participate in some of these projects. Large projects that you see today, you have some of those guys that were like the trailblazers of us being able to do that. About myself, I am a general contractor. Structural Rewrite is the name of my firm. We do general contracting, and we're subject to 150 with the operators union. And I just, for myself, my journey's a little different. I was involved in the industry for years, and I got really involved in the commercial aspect, and I just felt like I wasn't doing enough just being an actual contractor in the industry. I wanted to be able to have a voice to say, hey, this is just really an unfair market for us, to where we're constantly hearing that none of us exist or opportunities aren't available because we're just not in that space to be able to do it. And I found that to be not true. And the interesting thing is, one thing I can say is that once I really got involved with this, I started noticing how important inclusion was and is. as you know, that BECO and BCE were different organizations, but we really truly stand together in terms of making sure that our organizations are a part of these larger discussions that's being had in the city here. Myself and Irma, we talk consistently about opportunities that we feel that it's necessary for us not to miss. And if it's not one of our own organization, one of our own members in my organization, I make sure that somebody in BECO is in that room, because to me, it's just important that Black contractors have a voice and have an opportunity. It doesn't matter of what organization it comes from. It's just as long as that we're in the room and we can actually state that we had an opportunity to actually bid in these processes. So I just think that's important because, there are a few assist agencies that are African American, but we all feel as if we need to communicate with each other to be in this space.
Well, I'm really proud of the fact, Kareem, that the fact that you guys are working together, because I think too often when we take a look at how to divide and conquer, and we sometimes find ourselves, or people want to find ourselves, where we are adversaries. In reality, we all are partners because, the chamber came into existence for the same basic reasons because Black voice was not being heard. We have Jimmy actually was a member of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce for many years and proud of the work that he's done. And Sean has done incredible work. And so many people from BCU, Larry Higgins, and so many other great iconic figures have worked hard to make things happen. I want to give just a little bit of perspective, and then I want to get into the weeds on a couple things. Number one of our leaders of our construction committee is one of the other, what I consider to be titans in the construction business. Boa Construction Company is one of our leaders for the chamber. He's in different places around the state. He does a lot of work with minorities. And I'm proud of all the work that all of them have done. But we need more people like Jimmy, more people like Boa Construction in the industry. But here's what I want to pose to you guys. When we take a look at the numbers and we go to IDOT and we go to Tollway and we go to the Capital Development Board, when we take a look at the numbers, guys, the numbers didn't show that we're participating at a significant level across the board. Let me just ask, is that the case? Do you see the same thing that we see? And what's your perspective on that? I'll start with ladies first. Irma?
Yes, please. Please.
Oh, sure. We see you see the same thing we see, right? The reality of it is that there is not enough of us participating. That the playing field has not been leveled, and we don't have the same opportunities as others do. And so, as a result of it, that's why our organizations are so important because now we have to stop talking about it and start doing something about it. And that's one of the things that Black Contractors United and I have decided to link up, and hey, no man left, behind. And we're standing there, and we're putting a mandate on the fact that hey, you need to give us contracts. We need to receive that information in a timely fashion. We need the access that our other counterparts have. And then for those of you that you keep using year after year, project after project, you need to put something on them as well. Put a mandate on them to make sure that they're scaling up and not just scaling us out of the equation. And so for us, we're seeing it. We acknowledge that there is an issue, but I'm sure that this climate will look a lot different in years to come because I believe that as we unite together, we gain our power, we gain our strength, and collectively we can move this agenda in the right direction. The young man prior to us getting on talked about, how things look like, they did in the 1960s and things of that sort. And he's exactly right. We're still living in that era to some degree, but I believe it's a mentality. So we have to own it ourselves, and we have to begin to change our mentalities and stop operating out of a place of lack. And start operating, in a place of, togetherness, and that togetherness, we've seen it, the Dr. Kings of the world, the Jesse Jacksons of the world. The power comes when we unite.
Absolutely. And, Irma, I love the comment you made about no man left behind. and I would just change a little bit, no man or woman left behind. And that's the Marine Corps creed. And as an ex-Marine, I love that comment because that's what our creed was, no man left behind at the Marine Corps. And I was proud to serve in that capacity.
Thank you for your
The other
service.
thing that's really important is that I want to go to Kareem. Kareem, give us your perspective. She just kind of gave her perspective on it, and I love the fact that you guys are working together. I hope that the
Yes.
chamber becomes a part of that family also, because when we're in those meetings, we need to elevate each other, strengthen each other's hand, and make sure that when I'm be in Waukegan or in Champaign or any place around the state, I need to find qualified contractors that I can promote and make sure they get a chance to participate. So, Kareem, I'm gonna pass it to you.
You know, I agree everything that Irma said, but I'm going to add a caveat to that. From my personal experience, what I've actually seen is that it's very challenging to make, a billionaire company or a multimillionaire contractor force their hand to use you. And because of that, I was saying that I think that we as black contractors should take a different approach. And I've done this myself and become successful in it. What's happening here in these projects in the city is rinse and repeat. Instead of looking for new contractors, they see the ones that have been doing this for years and decades, and they just say, you know what, and these estimators, they know how to deal with them, so they just go back to them. And then what happens with us? I was getting really frustrated because we would go and have all these scope review meetings, and they're trying to make it work. But then at the end of the day, the one thing that I've come to understand is it's really up to that estimator who has a relationship with the estimator for that client that they like to use. So I said, you know what? If you're going to force the hand of, making sure that these minority participation goals have been met, why don't you just go in there with that guy that they like and say, hey, let's form of a partnership to where instead of them forcing you to use me, why don't we have an authentic, organic relationship to where if I'm coming in with you as a partner and we're actually going in to provide a service or an opportunity to just, get into this job, it's going to be more receptive to that prime, as well as you having a real chance of actually getting that, and not just a chance of saying, hey, I'm just checking the box and getting the bare minimum, but to actually have a chance to really maximize as much as you can on that percentage, because if you do that, then they're really looking to you to actually be an actual partner. And when I took that position, I was seeing us actually being at a point where our numbers were being respected, and awards were coming more favorable because we were coming in there with an authentic relationship. And so the reason why I mention that is because for years we've been always trying to figure out how can we get in these spaces, upset because when we do get in these spaces, we're really just getting the bare minimum. And taking this approach, I felt was going to be a better scenario for all of us, because what happens is when we take that position and we're successful in it, then we can reach back to someone that's getting started and say, hey, this is how we can do it. This is how we can actually be a real partner in this actual relationship if we go in with this prime or this sub that's being used a lot to come in and say, here are our real numbers. And it's been successful for me, and I want to make sure that I'm saying this on air, because if we all just take this approach, I think we'll see a lot of us more in those arenas with successful bids rather than just on the outside trying to figure out how we can't get in these spaces. Because the biggest thing that I think, and as organizations that I try to stress, and I know the Irma does this as well, it's not enough to just get the certifications. We think that because we get these certifications, that means that's an automatic bid for us to get these jobs.
Well,
Nah, you got to go a little bit. You got to work a little bit hard on that.
a
And
lot
so,
harder than that.
yeah, and so because of that, I wanted to mention
Well,
it.
let me just mention this. Going back to,
We have a caller, Larry.
we're gonna have to call those. Gonna have to
Okay, I
wait
just
for a
wanna
moment.
make sure the caller knows we
we
acknowledged
got.
them.
I see him, but
All
I'm
right.
in this conversation right now. We're gonna have the callers gonna get in.
Y'all see what I go
Yeah.
through? Do you
Okay.
all see this?
Hey,
Okay.
but going back to what both of you said, and looking at historical data, because one of the great iconic figures that I think had enormous impact was Dr. Arthur Fletcher, who was a father of affirmative action, and he wrote affirmative action. And the ultimate goal, and if you go back and take a look at the Supreme Court cases, the Adirondack and Pena, the Richmond versus Croson, all these are landmark case. The ultimate goal, and what the Trump administration is trying to say is that we have achieved the degree of parity because eventually when you have black contractors who are general contractors, because general contractors choose subcontractors, and we would hope, just like white contractors choose white people, that the more successful general contractors we have, like Jimmy, like Anosa, and like others who are priming, the better chances of us participating. So, a part of the objective, we agree, we have to make sure that we're growing and building capacity, not through material supplies. And we understand material supplies are good, but really need general contractors to grow. And then when they grow, they need to make sure that they develop African American contractors at the same time. And so I think that's so critical. And I love the fact that you guys are doing so many things, but bringing so many perspectives. And I think when we all get on the same page or try to get on the same page, when we're in the meetings, we can collectively say, here's what we want to see happen. Because the numbers, even with all the political might that we have, and I point this out for a moment, and then I'll go to the call and to come back to the team, is that when we take a look at the amount of business we're getting and the political might we have a speaker, we have a AG, we have a lieutenant governor, we have a lot of people in power, African Americans. But when you take a look at our participation, there's a disconnect. Now we have the political might, but we haven't yet realized that. So we have to figure out how do we turn that into something bigger and better. And I want you guys to answer that question from your perspective after we take this call. LaDonna?
All right. We're going to go to Miss Janice. Janice, you're live on the Wake Up Show Chicago.
Hi, Miss Lazar. I'm going to say two quick things. That you can't let those Korean shops go. We have Solo that comes on WBON now, and they have a show on also with Dr. Lekashar at 2. But as when we're speaking about these construction workers, my father did construction with his father, and then the stepbrother did construction with his stepfather. So there you go. It's like a vicious cycle. I want to say, couldn't we choose 2 politicians to defeat this election since they're not doing anything for us? Janulius could go. And choose another one that can go. Because I know you all like the governor. I say clean house. But and say if our black men cannot work, the leaders of our community, I'm not liberated. Like my mother said, she wants the option to sit down. She only had the option to work. I said go after the Democratic Party like you've never gone before. Choose one you can set down. You can take Janulius out. You can take a lot of them. You can take 2 of them out and say, we're going to take the next election, we're going to clean house. My mother always told us, I warn you once. The second time, I'm taking action.
I know
And
that's
I have
right.
been
Thank you,
to
Miss
the
Janice.
movies.
Thank you. Go ahead. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, I think Dennis has a perspective in terms of, quite frankly, if people aren't getting done what we want to get done, then in politics, it's about dividing the spoils of war. And the job should be that we should support those who support us. But I'm going to pass it back to our guests in terms of what we said earlier, in terms of we have all these incredible leadership and talented people, but our numbers are not reflecting. What do you think we need to do? Where's the disconnect? And how do you think we make it better so that the numbers are more reflective? And do they have as much influence as we think they do? And maybe they don't. So I'll pass it to Irma, you or for Kareem to give your perspective on that.
All righty. So I want to, I didn't talk about my, where I am now as well. I'm also a construction owner, right? And so I know this firsthand. I come from a family of construction workers. My father owned a construction company for over 35 years, 10 brothers and myself. And with that being said, I've seen it and I've seen it all. We felt the financial impact as a family, the whole 9 yards. As a result of it, that's one of the things that makes me being in this seat so special, right? Because not only am I in it currently, but my family and my brothers and all of us were in it, you know. But the reality of it is that we have to come together. And I think one of the things that Kareem and I have decided to do is that we know that we have the power if we unite, right? And you have to realize that we didn't always control, legislation, right? We didn't always control the House or the Senate and things of that sort. So it's going to take us some time to get there. But I think they're getting there and we're getting there. Once we both arrive, then we can come collectively to do what we want to have done. But in the meantime, hey, we're watching to see what they're doing. They're watching to see if we're doing what we're supposed to do, honoring our word and building capacity and really doing the right thing in the industry. And I think as a result of two of us, two parties, construction and legislative, doing the right thing, you'll see something very different, right? But it takes all of us doing our part and doing it with a standard of excellence. And I think
Absolutely.
that's what we've gotten away from.
Yeah.
And so
Kareem,
now we're on our way back.
Kareem, what's your, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yes. I think what's important is that we understand that as much as we need legislation and we need people in office, that we have to have a sense of responsibility
That's
of
right.
being contractors and owners and say, are we doing our part? And so what I've experienced is that, and I'm just going to keep it a buck, I think that our biggest challenge is that we constantly run and deflect to politicians and industry because things aren't necessarily going the way that we want it to go. But the first question that I ask all of my members when they want to come and they see this big $5 billion, project coming into a community, the first thing I ask, do you have everything in place to where when we go advocate for you, they can't come back to me and say they don't have their certification, they don't have their bonding, they don't have their insurance. And what's happened is, and we have to take responsibility. We have to get tighter on making sure that everything and anything that we need to be in a position to play in that sandbox, we have it. And so as much as I want to make sure that I'm saying and I'm advocating for these big companies to use us, I want to make sure that our audience hear that same thing, because the biggest crime is when we have folks that's, they call themselves activists / construction workers, and they don't have what they need in order to actually participate. We must address those issues, because if we don't, we're the only ones that are in that space that don't quite have everything that we need, but yet we feel that we're obligated to these things.
Yeah,
and I just don't understand that.
Who does that audit?
Go ahead, LaDonna.
Who does that audit? Who does that regular audit to say, in order for you to come through us, you have to have X? Because if you're the part of the good old boys club, they're on the golf course talking about what they need to have and getting it done. We're not part of that circle. So who's doing that audit, that temperature check?
I know that our organizations, I know that myself and BECO,
but are we
do
doing
it ourselves.
According to what he said, see, we're having a conversation off the mic. So according to what he said we want to make sure that they have everything in place before we make that bid.
Yeah.
So is that?
And I say to all of us is that the question is always about ready, willing, and able.
Yeah.
And being in the industry for as long as I've been in the industry, and we used to have a statewide contract for the whole state of Illinois, one of the few contracts that dealt with it. And what I found once we got into the business, we had a lot of contractors who were just simply not ready. And it was our job when we had the piece, when we would meet and we would talk to contractors and we would evaluate the contractors on a scale of 1 to 10, and we would ask them, and our team would sit there and ask them, where do you think you're at? And they would rate themselves, and they would always traditionally rank themselves higher at an 8 or a 7. And when we asked our team privately, what do you think they're at? They would say a 5. And then I would say, well, what do we need to do now to get them to the 7 or 8 that they think they're at? And that's where the time and energy, pre-qualification, all the work has to be done, because I think agencies are willing to work with us on pre-quals and everything else, but we also got to continue to keep pressure on agencies and organizations, whether it be IDOT, Tollway, Capital Development Board, city of Chicago, we always got to make sure that we're at the table with a clear voice in terms of what's needed for the industry as a whole. And when you advocate and you're pushing the envelope, then things can begin to happen. I'll pause there to say anything you got, because I know the show goes so fast,
It
and
does.
I really wish we had more time. But hey, we got what we got. So Irma, any comments that you want to make, and Kareem, you want to make in reference to what's the other thing we need to do? Coming together, we get it. We need to come together. We need to unite. But you have a lot of other organizations too, like Omar Sharif with African American Contractors Association. You have Larry Bullock. You have other organizations. Do we have so many that we can't come together? Or are we, Irma, I think you said to me yesterday that we are coming together, which I believe is the case. How do we make that even stronger and better from your perspective?
Okay, great. Well, I think the first thing I wanted to piggyback on just one other thing you talked about how do we do that internally. So with at BECO, Black Contractors, Owners, and Executives, we have an internal report card where we are really taking a full assessment and really looking at where our contractors are. And for me, that's super important because, of course, we think we can do a whole lot, and the reality, we don't have the bonding, we don't have the insurance, we don't have back office, the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, we are teaming up with people like Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, with CTA, who's putting the dollars and their forces behind building capacity in with black contractors. And I echo what you said, Dr. Ivory, about the fact that they need to do more. And so we're beginning to see it, and I stated it early that, hey, it's about us being real with ourselves and taking responsibility. So we're growing together in this space. But as it relates to us coming together, yes, I believe we sit at these tables with all of those other agencies that you talked about regularly. And so we're not strangers. We have a great deal of respect for each agency that you mentioned. And as a result of it, the first thing is respect. The first thing is respect. The second thing is relationship. And so once you respect where each organization is, then you can then begin to form the relationship. And at the end of the day, the relationship will then bring us all where we are all united, in which we're headed in a great direction. And I
Yeah.
think it's us just staying the course, making sure that, hey, we're doing our part as independents. But when we come together, we're all together.
All
Okay.
right.
Kareem, anything you want to, because we're getting close to the end of the show, but Kareem, anything
Sure.
you want to add that you think is relevant to the listening audience in reference to understanding this industry and what we need to do in order to have a greater impact?
Sure. I'll give you an example to how we're currently doing it. Myself, Irma, Larry Bullock's firm, as well as Omar Sharif. We just had a quorum about a month ago, Irma, was that right?
Yes, about a month ago.
So we were over at Walsh for the CTA project, and they asked us to come in and really just to start a quarterly conversation about how, as we, as the Black Assist Agency leaders, can talk to them about improving commitment of community relationship and just getting contractors involved. And the wonderful part about that was we really gave it to them in the raw. I think they was expecting, maybe a quorum of appreciation. And I think Irma just spearheaded and said, y'all not doing enough. I mean, she just said, y'all not doing enough. We like the fact that we've started this. We like the fact that you guys are actually going out to the community and hiring, but we'd like to see more. And that really sort of spearheaded us into having a really good, solid conversation with them about how they could do more, how they could actually bring more contractors on their own instead of actually teaming up with a larger prime to actually come in and participate in this project. It's a $5 billion project. And while we were upset was we were saying that it seems like you guys are trying to carve out opportunities, but it ended up actually being a better scenario because now you're starting to see contractors that are actually being awarded pretty decent sized projects on the CTA because we actually came in and said, we need more. So I want to use that example to say that we are currently doing it. We're doing it on a large scale.
Yeah.
That would be the first of many projects that we'll talk about it on, but that is one example of how we're doing it right now.
Well, one of the things also I'll just mention, and this is for another show, is that when we take a look at African Americans in all those industries, we're underperforming, and we recognize that. Okay, so we don't have to debate that. We know that's the case. But Hispanics have seemed to do better, and what have they found out, and what are they doing different than us to be more successful? And I think it's something we ought to examine at a different time because we should
I was
learn.
gonna say, why you wait 5 minutes before the show ends to say that? I was ready.
But I think it's important, and I go back to a recent meeting we had with the Illinois Department of Transportation, and we meet and we talk with them at the highest levels, and we've had and I told them, I said, you had a conversation where you said that we did a 27%, which was misleading to the audience, to the black audience, and I told them, I said, if you come to my community again and you make that comment, I will publicly embarrass you because that's not the case. Because the fact of the matter is that 27% is not really 27%. It's something substantially less than that. And I broke down the numbers, and we've had I said, what I prefer that you do, you come to our community and you don't get our people applauding when the fact of the matter is they're doing substantially less than that, less than 1%. When you take a look at the total goal of 20% and the total amount of things subject to goal, and when you break that out with women, Hispanics, Asians, and then African Americans, the numbers are pretty bad. Now, I'm not mad at them. My point with them is that, look, let's recognize where we're at, and let's develop a game plan. Let's come together, and let's develop a game plan on what we're going to do to make it better. And I know that the Federal Highway Administration, the current administration, has some impact on some things, but there's a lot of things we can do under small business set aside, small business programming. You can't say set aside because that's considered unconstitutional. There's a lot of things they can do. I think it's so important for industry leaders to talk and to maybe have 4 or 5 key issues that we all agree upon, that when we're in a meeting, we're pushing for. That we say these are the 4 or 5 most critical factors that we want to push for. There's a lot more that we can do, but we ought to have some fundamental agreement among all agencies in the African American community that when we're in a meeting, these are critical factors that we want to push for. And I think it would make a difference because we would all be on the same page, singing from the same hymn book, and we could push that agenda. But there's tremendous opportunity. I celebrate the work that BECO is doing. I celebrate the work that BCU. I celebrate the work that all black organizations that are doing to make a difference. And there's still a lot of work to be done because we've been in this position for a long time. And it's up to us as leaders to change that and make it better. And we have an obligation to do so. So again, let me again thank you both for coming and joining us on the air. Feel free to reach out to me to come back on the air to talk about other subject matters and more specific things. Maybe we ought to come back once we have an agreement on 4 or 5 most critical issues. LaDonna, what's your thoughts?
Man, my thoughts are, in order for us to come together in business, we got to come together at home. I think when we start dropping the ball there, then it just kind of unravels the rest of the way. So that's something to think about. Also, I want to thank our sponsor, which is Wind Creek Chicago Southland, for giving us this space each and every week on WVON 1690. Make sure you guys go to our Facebook page and on our social media, go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. You'll look for Wake Up Show Chicago. And thank you to Lorenzo for doing little known history facts. And thank you to all of our listeners. And if we couldn't get to you on the phone lines, we do apologize, but we'll be back next week. What are we talking about next week? Next week,
we're going to have Dr. Ken Harris from the National Business League and the chairman of the president of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, Chuck DeBow, who will be on. They have an enormous conference in Atlanta where over 3,000 people come from all around the world, and we will be participating in that. There are iconic leaders nationally that will be talking about what's happening in Atlanta, Georgia, on August. So, hey, that's going to be live. You don't want to miss it.
All right. Thanks to our incredible guests, Irma Holloway and Kareem Broughton, as well, for bringing the noise this week on Wake Up Show Chicago. That's it. Larry Ivory, Dr. Larry Ivory.
Dr. LaDonna Raeh.
We're out, guys. Bye-bye for now.
Get ready to wake up to the pulse of progress as we amplify voices, break barriers, and illuminate the path towards a more inclusive tomorrow. Follow us across the socials at The Wake Up Show Chicago. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. It's The Wake Up Show every Saturday morning at 9, where change begins with every sunrise. Welcome to The Wake Up Show Chicago.
Celebrate the freedom to be. Happy Pride Month. We are WVON.